Hello, this is Richard Gates from Athens, Tennessee, and I play at Mouse Creek Golf. This is the Golf Smarter Podcast episode number 979.
If I'm not comfortable with something like my grip or my setup, I'll make sure I work on those things off the golf course. Once I get on the golf course, though, you have to play golf. You have to adapt because, if you work too much on the range, you're not adapting very well. If you can put the playing part more in the positive ratio, I think you're just going to get more out of your game because you don't adapt on the practice tee. Let's face it, the environment there just doesn't allow you to adapt. When you're on the golf course, you're always trying to figure out, different wind direction on every hole, the wind, the turf, every lie is different. Every scenario you have seems to be different than the next. So the more you play, the more golf shots that you develop and remember in your repertoire. So when the next time you go out, you said, I had a lie like that 2 weeks ago, that you have to have a lot of good recall memory to remember what this particular lie does to the golf ball, where you don't have that on the practice tee.
With this episode, we launch our 20th year. Balancing practice and play is essential for golf improvement. With Steve Scott, PGA.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter Podcast, Steve.
Great to be with you, Fred.
Thank you so much. We have so many different topics we can go talk about here. Looking at your bio, you've done so many different things in the golf world. And usually I would start, where do you want to start? Actually, where would you like to go? Now, let's do it this way. What is the Silver Club Golfing Society that you founded?
Yeah, well. So I was a PGA I still am a PGA professional. I was had the traditional head professional role from 2009 till the end of 2017 at a couple clubs in New Jersey and New York, and ever since then I've been associated with a group called the Outpost Club, and we created kind of a competitive version of the Outpost Club, basically just a bunch of golf aficionados who love the game. We basically set up really fun opportunities for our members to go and play great places in the world of golf, whether it's, the Olympic Club, East Lake, Oakmont. I mean, kind of the creme de la creme, if you will, of the golf world. And so we set up we set up really, and we do some resorts as well. We do some international trips. We went to the Walker Cup in Scotland last year.
Fun.
We put together a lot of fun things. Everybody in our group, the Silver Club Golfing Society, is a single digit handicap. Our sister society, the Outpost Club, anybody can join that. But you have to have a pretty passionate love for the game, architecturally significant courses, kind of a golf nerd, if you will, I guess, but not too nerdy.
Well, you're talking to the right group here, because anybody who's listening to this show, I have to believe, is a complete golf nerd, because we cover so many different topics in so many different directions, and people keep listening. So I'm like, I don't know what we're going to talk about next. So thank you for sticking around. Yep. So golf nerds it is. Have you always been a fan of golf architecture?
I haven't, not forever. I would say, so I played professionally for 6 years. I played professionally from the 1999 to 2005, had moderate success. I played in 20 PGA Tour events in my life, won a couple times on the Canadian Tour, but I quickly realized that my game was not up to the snuff of the Tiger Woodses of the world. So, that being said, I decided to shift gears. I got married at a pretty young age to a great lady named Christy, she's an LPGA teaching professional herself, and we've just always been involved with the game. And so the natural progression was I always wanted to be in golf. I love the game of golf. I love competing. I love kind of sharing the game with others. And so, in my travels, when I was a head pro in the Met PGA section in the New York metropolitan area, I was at a club called Paramount Country Club, and it was a course designed by a famous architect called A.W. Tillinghast, who build a course on the private estate of the Paramount Pictures founder Adolf Zucker back in 1920.
Wow.
And it was about 30 minutes northwest of New York City in a city called New City, New York, in Rockland County. And, being in the Met section, you get exposed to a lot of great golf courses, the greatest architects of the world, C.B. Macdonald and, Tillinghast. And then, even in the modern, anybody really who was anything in golf, Donald Ross, for example. Obviously nobody of these are modern, but, and not too many modern courses I get in the New York area, a lot of built in the 1910s and 20s and whatnot. But over time, you start to develop a love for, what makes golf cool. It's kind of like being a wine enthusiast, for example, and you start to understand what makes wine good, and certain years and vintages are better than others. And so, you start to get into that world in the golf world, and it's kind of cool to understand the history of some places. And I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina now, and so I belong to a course called the Old Town Club. It was built in 1939, really the last golf course in the golden age of architecture. And it was built by Perry Maxwell, who built mainly courses in Oklahoma, Texas, like, Colonial Country Club, and, places, Prairie Dunes in Kansas. But he built Old Town. And it was really because of the connection with Clifford Roberts from Augusta National, the gentleman, he was working with the R.J. Reynolds Company, and he had a connection with, the founder, the head of R.J. Reynolds. And he said, who should I get to build a golf course here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina? He said, Perry Maxwell. He's been doing some work at Augusta, in the mid to late 1930s. And so it just kind of worked out. And so anyway, it's kind of the routing of the golf course is unbelievable. So over time, I guess, make a long story short, I have become a golf architecture, really just an enthusiast and a lover of, what makes golf courses cool. I mean, the routing, why did the architect pick the way he did to lay the golf course on the land that he did, that he had to work with? And it's really genius in a lot of ways. And back then they didn't have all the technology they do now at their disposal. So it makes it even more astounding that they built the golf courses the way they did back then.
It really does. When you think about what they have available to them today and what they didn't have available, but still were able to make some courses that are as challenging today as they were when they first opened, and probably even more so.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they just didn't have the earth-moving equipment, which made the golf courses much more natural back then. They had to pick the best properties because they weren't able to move as much earth, and which makes golf better because it's not artificial. It's very natural looking, and I think that's what the architects that are building golf courses nowadays are really doing. So there's so much love for the architect and the canvas that he uses with the land that he is offered and or she is offered. And so it's been pretty neat to experience. I've probably been to or played 2/3 of the country's top 100 golf courses. So
wow.
Very fortunate in that respect. At only 47 years of age, I've gotten around to a lot of great places. So a lot more to go, but I've had a lot of great experiences through the Silver Club, through the Outpost Club, to be able to see and experience and enjoy so many of these world's greatest golf courses.
I played last week. I went and visited a friend in Maui, Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And we played a course, the Dunes at Maui Lani, which was designed by the late Robin Nelson. And Robin was on the show multiple times. He grew up in the area where I live now, Marin County, California. Mm-hmm. And he was one of those architects that was like, let's just take the land as it is and not do a lot of movement. Mm-hmm. And this course is like the only link style course in Maui. Mm-hmm. And it was tough. But it was really beautiful the way he was able to just let the let the ground, let the land dictate what the hole was going to do, and made it incredibly challenging. It's kind of like going on a group tour to a country where you don't speak the language and you just like, I need a local with me.
Yeah.
Luckily, my friend lived there and played multiple times and is like needed to guide me through this course, because if I didn't know where I was going, that little booklet that explained where I was would not have helped at all.
Right.
Using the land the way it is in today, with having all that earth mover equipment and not needing it, was really spectacular.
Yeah, it's neat to experience those courses. And there's so many courses being built right now that are so remote and they're becoming so popular. I mean, Bandon Dunes is very hard to get to, and that's, relatively new. I mean, there's courses. Right. There's one being built in the orange groves of central Florida, in the middle of nowhere, south of Sebring, Florida, on a sandy ridge called High Grove. It's going to be starting to be built. I mean, that one is very, very interesting. Gil Hance is building that one. So anyway, there's just a lot of very remote places being built now that are it's really interesting where they're finding this land and the perfect property.
Yeah. I played Bandon Dunes a couple times. Luckily, I'm on the West Coast, so it's not as difficult to get to, but it's still difficult to get to. But it's become, I guess it's like frat boy Disneyland. It's like just guys wanting to spend days doing nothing but golf and talking about it and playing. But it's an absolute joy. Have you been out to Bandon Dunes?
I have. I was there in just about a year ago now. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about your time as not just a teaching professional, but as a playing professional, because you also wrote a book, Hey Tiger, You Need to Move Your Mark Back.
Yeah.
Which is such an amazing title. Give me a brief overview as a taste.
Oh boy. Well, it really goes back to my experiences playing in the 1996 U.S. Amateur Finals against the great Tiger Woods.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was pretty serendipitous event for me. I mean, 312 players start the U.S. Amateur, and to think you could be in the final two, let alone your opponent is arguably the greatest player who's ever lived, right? So
even at that time,
he was going for history. The day that we played he was going for 3 straight U.S. Amateur championships. Nobody in the history of golf had ever won 3 straight U.S. Amateurs. I mean, it's been played 124 years now, I guess. So it's pretty amazing what he did that day and how it all turned out. But just to make it to the finals against him is a miraculous feat in itself. But I was 5 up. The finals of the U.S. Amateur are 36 holes. We went 38 holes, so 2 playoff holes on top of the regulation time. But I was 5 up after 18 holes and shot 2 under par in the second 18. I played very well, but he just played lights out. He shot 7 under. And so we tied and went to the second playoff hole where he beat me. But the epic moment of the match and where the book is entitled is basically where I'm 2 up with 3 to play. So if I win this particular hole, it's the 34th hole of the match. If I win this hole, I win the match and I take away his history moment. And so we both hit our drives down the fairway. I hit my approach into the greenside bunker. And his wedge approach, he drove it 53 yards past me exactly. And his wedge approach went about 6 feet from the hole. So I hit a bunker shot out. It wasn't the greatest bunker shot, but not the worst. I had about 10 feet for par. So I had to make my putt for par to force him to make his to win the hole outright. Well, his ball marker was right in my line of putt. And so like any golfer does any day playing golf, hey, would you just move that ball marker over one putter head so we can have a free roll? And so he does, and I went up there and I made my putt, and I was very nervous, and as you can imagine, in a moment like that, and hit the best putt I could ever, dead center of the hole, walking off to the side of the green, and I had noticed that he had put his ball down in the wrong spot, and so basically, I just turned my head to the side and I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I said, "Hey, Tiger, you gotta move your mark back." And he had forgotten. And so if he would have played from the wrong spot, he would have lost the hole. That's the rule in match play golf. And so the match would have been over at that point. I would have won 3 up with 2 holes to play. And that would have been pretty crazy to win the U.S. Amateur, but to win it on a technicality like that, it's not necessarily golf. It's the first rule of the game is to play with integrity. And I asked him to move the mark over, so I should be the one to remind him to move it back as well. And there have been instances in golf where the second part of that 2-part transaction did not take place. And people do those things on purpose, sadly. But for me, and what I learned in the game as a youngster, that moment was a reflex action for me. If you look back on the YouTube video that's out there now, I mean, it was a reflex action. Like, it was something I learned in the game. It was kind of burned into my golf DNA. And so that's just what you do as a golfer. You remind your opponent to move his mark back. You help your opponent find their golf ball. You're kind of your own police out there in a way. There's no referee blowing whistles or throwing flags. And so golf is that gentlewoman's sport. And so you just do the right thing. And that's really what that moment and that whole entire book was all about.
Well, congratulations on making it that far, and congratulations on your integrity. But I'm curious to know, even in 1996, did Tiger have the intimidation factor that he was known for when he made it to the tour and just dominated the tour? When you walk out there and you're like, I'm playing Tiger Woods, the guy has just won the last 2 amateur championships, going for his third, the last round. Was he intimidating, or was he just a great guy to play with?
Well,
and I'm sure there's many more options than that.
He was very intimidating for sure. I mean, given the sheer length that he drove the golf ball in itself, I think was very intimidating. But luckily for me, about 9 months prior to this, I was paired with him in a collegiate event. He played for Stanford, and I played for the University of Florida. And that was a really good break, because that day, that first time I played with him, I was very intimidated. I was watching what he was doing. He was hitting shots that were just otherworldly. And so really, I made it a point. I shot an 80 that day, by the way, and he shot a 70 the very first time we played.
Wow.
And so it was definitely, he threw me off my game. I was not sharp. I was not focused on what I needed to focus on. So the game plan going into that U.S. Amateur final was to not watch him hit a shot. And that's very difficult because he's very impressive. He's amazing to watch. If any of your listeners, I'm sure, have ever seen him hit a golf ball in person, the sound of his golf ball, certainly I couldn't get away from that, but I just didn't want to get caught up in his world. And so that was kind of that was the game plan that day, that my girlfriend, Christy, now my wife for over 25 years now, who was caddying for me, which is another wrinkle in the whole day, because not many females actually caddied back then.
We'll get to that.
But he was definitely intimidating, but I had a game plan to kind of get out of that intimidation factor.
Okay, girlfriend, caddy, then wife, caddy. Did she caddy for you on the tour too?
A little bit, yes. Yeah, she definitely, not full time. I mean, I never had my PGA Tour card, but I've played a bunch of events, and she's caddied for me in both the majors that I played, in the Masters and the U.S. Open.
Really?
She's caddied for me in lots of events. The very last PGA Tour event I played, I'm 47 now, so I played the Wyndham Championship on the PGA Tour in 2019 through the Carolinas PGA section where I reside now, and she caddied for me there too. So might be my last PGA event. I hope not. I've got a chance to qualify for the PGA Championship this next year, which is exciting. So I still compete. I'm still into the game, but But yeah, it's pretty neat having somebody who knows you and knows your game so well, be right with you step for step.
Well, yeah, you'd always hope that whoever's caddying for you, that they know your game, especially at that level. But there's also an element of husband-wife energy, even boyfriend-girlfriend energy that can, I can imagine. I mean, like, I can't even play golf with my wife. She's like, oh, I play golf. And I'm like, you haven't picked up a club in 5 years. Well, we can go play 9 holes. I said, well, I'm not going until you hit a bucket of ball. No, I'm not going to do that. It's like, okay, forget it. We're just, you go for a hike. I'll go play golf. We'll all be fine. But how do you avoid, I mean, there's a couple topics here, but I want to talk about you and your wife caddying for you. How do you avoid that kind of tension that is natural for a couple?
Yeah, it's we get along so well. I mean, like I said earlier, she's an LPG teaching professional herself, so she's into the game. She understands. She's not just a wife that just goes shopping every day. I mean, she understands everything that I go through competitively. She played competitively at Florida Southern College and high school before that, and she didn't really have any aspirations to turn professional. But it could be trying at times if you miss a whole bunch of cuts in a row and you're not making a lot of money and you're in all these strange cities and sometimes hotel rooms you don't want to be in and.
Let me ask you this.
Oh gosh,
what's the point that you say to her? Yeah, I'm going to get a different caddy next week. How do you do that? I mean, how do you tell her that you're fired?
Yeah, well, I think it's more you realize it mutually when if you're not making, me as the golfer, I'm not out there holding enough putts and hitting enough good shots. I'm not making checks, so somebody's got to make some guaranteed money. So that's probably what it turned out to at some point. I'm trying to remember exactly when that happened, but it definitely happened.
I'm sure it does. I'm sorry. I kind of find that funny.
Yeah.
And baffling as well. But congratulations. I mean, I'm glad that you were able to make it work. Wow. Yeah. Let's see. There's so much talk about you. You then have done a lot of golf media as well, right?
I have.
Because you're blessed with that incredible voice.
Thank you. Well, maybe fortunate in a lot of ways, but I majored in communications in college, so I always kind of had a plan. When I missed a cut, when I played the Canadian Tour, for example, and the Golf Channel was covering events, I would work as an on-course reporter a few times over the weekend, which was fun. I wanted to get my foot into the door. I always had a love for it. I mean, I'm a golf nut. I watch golf all the time, probably too much. And but I've always kind of had that love for everything that goes on in covering a golf event. And so as a head professional in the Mets section back in, I guess it was 2017. Well, 2016 is when I kind of got my first break. The USGA event, the U.S. Girls Junior, was at a club not too far away from where I was a pro at, just over the border in New Jersey at Ridgewood Country Club. And they needed another person to cover the semifinal match. And I knew somebody that got me involved with it. And so I worked that, and I guess they liked what I did. And so the next year I did 3 events for Fox when they had the 8 events that they covered for the USGA. And then I did that for a couple of years, but really I kind of saw it because as a head pro in the summer, in July, for example, you're kind of in the heat of the golf season right there. And, I really had the love for the broadcasting side, and my club was very kind. The owner of the club was very kind to let me go and, spend 3 weeks essentially in the middle of the golf season covering these events. And I had this love for it. I had this passion for it. And so, that kind of led me to, shifting gears a little bit in my career and opening up the, additional opportunities to do broadcasting. And nowadays, really for the last 3+ years, I've been either an analyst in the booth or an on-course broadcaster for ESPN and PGA Tour Live. And so I've been doing several events for them every year. And so that's been a ton of fun. And that platform has blown up. If anybody has seen that, I mean, we've got 4 different channels, and I think there will be a 5th one this year with an international feed that's fully staffed with a host and an analyst and an on-course reporter. So yeah, there's only going to be more coverage of the tour. So it's very exciting for me. I love being out there in the mix or learning about what the players are working on with their coaches, and then explaining that to the viewer in a way that's not over their head, but in a way that you can, it's easily digestible and understandable, whether you're a 20 handicap or a pro. I try to give all sorts of knowledge levels and information during my coverage of an event.
So what makes golf unique and interesting on television is the unique perspective that on-course reporters and in the booth people can bring to the game. Do you try to find a niche for yourself as a broadcaster on your perspective, or you just talk?
Well, no, I for sure. No, I think every analyst out there, which I'm the host is kind of the one that brings you in and out of commercial and kind of sets up the analyst for, the color of what's going on out there, getting inside the players' heads. And, for me as a PGA professional since 2007, I'm going on, almost 20, nearly 20 years of being a PGA professional, and all the thousands of lessons that I've given, I try to relay, what the players are doing, in their golf swings, or, try to help them identify, help the viewer kind of easily identify what sort of changes, like a Xander Schauffele, for example, for this last year and the great play he had and 2 major championship victories. What did he do with his instructor, Chris Como, in strengthening the club face at the top of the swing that really helped him succeed in a greater level in 2024? I mean, those are the things that I love passing on to the viewers who maybe don't quite get all the inside knowledge. That's the fun part for me. And, definitely my PGA professional side, I bring that to bear for sure. I'm not a major champion. I'm not a Ryder Cup captain. I'm not, probably not going to be in the 18th tower for a major network, but somebody like me can serve a very good role in, passing along really pertinent information, timely information, and being succinct with your thoughts. Those things, if you marry those things as an analyst, I think you'll nail it.
Okay. Let's talk about the state of the game. From your perspective, how are we doing and where are we going?
Yeah, that's a question. That's a loaded question right there. I don't think anybody really knows other than Jay Monahan and those few people that are in those closed door meetings right now. There hasn't been much to leak out with what's going on between the Live Tour and the PGA Tour. Yeah. Your guess is kind of as good as mine on that one, but I think they're getting closer to something, by some accounts. But there's a lot of little things that everybody's trying to iron out. But the golf world needs to get back together more than just a few times during the major championship seasons. We need to get the best players on the same golf course, a dozen times a year. And I think that would be a win. I don't think it's going to be every week, because I think there's, the Live Tour could continue in its team format. I don't know if the PGA Tour will ever go to a team format. I think that there's just a lot of things that the 2 team events, the Presidents and Ryder Cup. True.
Right?
Well, it's a bigger team, and we have this TGL golf that's going to be starting up in early January. That's this indoor, golf simulator sort of league, which is very interesting to me to see how that will all kind of shake itself out. Some people are very skeptical about it right now. I'm trying to keep an open mind, but I think that's we've got 4-person teams of PGA Tour players, and we're going to see a team aspect of some sort, through PGA Tour players. So I think that's going to be a very interesting addition to our Monday and Tuesday night lineups the first quarter of the year.
Yeah, a decade or so, maybe even a little more than that ago, when someone started a thing called Twitch, where people were just watching somebody play a video game. And it's like, that's a dumb idea that exploded, right? So watching people play video games has been proven to work. So watching people play simulators may have some legs to it. I mean,
we're going to see. We're going to see. I think it's a very interesting concept, and there's tremendous funds behind it. They built a state-of-the-art stadium, indoor, golf stadium, if you will, that nobody's ever seen before. So, a screen that's 20 times the size of a movie theater screen or something like that. So it's going to be very unlike anything we've ever seen. It's going to be very, very interesting. It's almost like they're hitting shots into a IMAX theater or something. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, there's a place down in LA. I think it's Cosm is the name of it or something. But it's like a movie theater, but for sports. And it has this gigantic screen that it makes you feel like you're courtside in an NBA game, or you're sitting in the end zone at a football game. And it's kind of like a bar, and the people go to and watch. I can see how this could really be attractive in many markets.
It's a very interesting concept, and we'll see how it all shakes out.
Well, you said your guess is as good as mine. I don't think so, Steve. I think that your guess, you're in it. You talk to them. What's the buzz on the grass? I mean, what you talk to players, you get their sense of what's going on. And clearly you're saying they're as confused as all of us because the doors are closed and the conversations are not public.
Yeah.
What's the sense you get on both sides of it? And I don't know if you talk to live players as well.
No, I really haven't, honestly. I really think the meetings have been extremely tight-lipped. I mean, not even the golf insiders that have more insight than I do. I mean, nobody's really shared anything. So it's, it's like, I guess Jay Monahan said, you can't negotiate out in public the way they're doing it and what they have to do, all the little things, because the social media world will run rampant. I mean, they just can't. They can't let any little thing leak out. And so it's, hopefully it will happen. I'm not seeing it's going to happen for the season of 2025. It's just getting too close. We have 2 months to go. I just don't think they're going to be able to get enough things in order and in place. So it might be another year or so.
Yeah, who knows how far along they are in those meetings and what's going on, because it's amazing that nothing's gotten leaked at this point. You'd think you'd get something out there to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Don't know. I don't know. I'd love to know. But we'll deal with it at the time. So let's talk about playing golf. All right. You're a teaching pro, playing pro. You've seen a lot of things. What do you feel is the state of golf instruction these days?
I think the state of golf instruction is great. I mean, I think there's so many avenues for the quote unquote average player or any player to consume golf instruction out there through the world of YouTube, through social media platforms that so many of these teachers have and utilize. I think so that's wonderful. I think as a student, you have to be very cautious though, because every teacher has their own concepts, their own ideas, their own thoughts about what the swing should be. And there are so many different ways to play golf. You can grip the club conventionally. You can grip the club, cross-handed. You can put your right foot back when you make a back. I mean, you can set up left and may hit a fade. You can set up right and hit a draw. As a righty, I mean, there's so many ways to putt. I mean, there's so many ways to get the ball into the hole. I think what you have to do as a player with all of this instruction is you have to find out what works for you. and then just stick along those lines, because if you are somebody who consumes golf information and golf instruction out there, you can get confused. I mean, the pages of Golf Digest or Golf Magazine, I mean, they very often put, in consecutive pages in their magazine, they have, in the past, they've put, conflicting ways to do this or do that, but there are just so many ways to do it. And so,
Right.
The more information you seek out as a student can be good, but it can also be, not so great, because, but you do have, the world of AI is out there right now with golf instruction. You don't even need a golf teacher in some ways if you don't want one. I mean, you can just video your swing, and, the AI will, tell you if your left arm is too high, if your club face is too open. It's very interesting what is out there. But I mean, then you have all the launch monitors like TrackMan and Flight Scope and all of those things that help tell you everything about your swing. It's almost information overload. And so you have to really be selective, I think, as a student in what you seek out, because you can get confused. You can. There's so much information out there where 20, 25 years ago there was not. And so, you have to kind of pin down, and maybe you need some, get your local PGA professional to, if you're a member at a club or if you're at a public club or whatever, it doesn't matter. Seek out somebody who's, who you feel is knowledgeable, or somebody in your area you feel like is knowledgeable as a teacher or a golf professional, and, ask them what they think too. They'll probably have a different answer than I will. But I think the best lesson I ever got, or the best understanding, was, find a golf teacher who you really connect with, or a method you really connect with, and really dive into that. And don't jump here, jump there, look for all these, because you can get lost in the abyss of swing thoughts and swing instruction out there too. I think there's a lot of cautionary tales out there, whether it's the professional ranks or just the average club player.
There is so much information. Like just recently, a few episodes ago, we had Ji-Hye Lee with Sportsbox AI, right? We talked to her and learned about how AI can monitor your swing and give you suggestions. And, you find someone that works for you and you stick with it. But I found, and as a recreational golfer, not a competitive golfer, but I found that it works for me for a couple rounds, and then it's gone. It doesn't work. And it's like, now what do? I tweak here, I tweak there. There's always something going on that you've got to figure out. What am I, how do I continue with that, stay with that without overdo? I don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, look, I'm
looking to you, Steve.
We're in the instant gratification world here, right? We have Amazon, and we can go on our phone right now and press a button, and something can be at our door in an hour, depending on where we live. And, with this instant gratification world doesn't necessarily exist in golf. It really doesn't.
Yeah, true.
Being proficient at the game of golf, it's a process. I mean, you have to have a very long-term mindset if you want to be good at golf. You have to put lots of hours into it. And if you don't, then, you can be an average player and have fun playing the game and, shoot in the 80s or 90s or 100s or whatever you shoot. But, to really be proficient, for me, I've been a golf professional for, since I was 22 years old. So for the last 25 years, I've studied the game. I've perfected my own game. I've hit tens of thousands of golf balls, and I've basically developed a golf swing and putting strokes that, they're pretty repeatable by this point, because I understand what makes my swing tick. And so I try not to stray too far from those things that I've learned over time. I try not to go down too many rabbit holes.
Let me ask you this about golf instruction. Is there, I don't want to say too much, where's the balance in instruction on swing mechanics and course management. Because, we call the show Golf Smarter.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean work on, hit 200 balls a day, over and over and over with no instruction, just hitting the balls going, oh, look at the ball flight, look at the ball flight, but then you get out on the golf course and you're not hitting off of a mat, you're not hitting off of sandy grass, and you're not hitting off of an uneven line, you're not hitting out of course management, being able to, and that to me is playing golf versus hitting balls. Where do you find that balance? And as an instructor for you, how do you maintain that balance, and what do you emphasize?
Well, I think for me, I still play tournaments. And so the closer I get to a tournament, the more I want to play golf, the more I want to be on the golf course. If there's something I'm working on in my swing, I'll spend, if I have, let's say, 5 hours a week to work on my game, and plus maybe a round of golf. I will make sure that, if I'm not comfortable with something like my grip or my setup, I'll make sure I work on those things off the golf course. And then, once I get on the golf course, though, you have to play golf. You have to adapt, because, if you work too much on the range, you have the flat lies, like you said, and you're not adapting very well. And so the best, the more that you can play, honestly, if you can put the playing part more in the positive ratio of the practicing to playing, I think you're just going to get more out of your game, because you don't adapt on the practice tee. Let's face it, because the environment there just doesn't allow you to adapt. When you're on the golf course, you're right. You're always trying to figure out, okay, different wind direction on every hole. The wind, the turf, every lie is different. Every scenario you have seems to be different than the next. So the more you play, the more golf shots that you develop and remember in your repertoire. So when the next time you go out, you said, "Oh, I had a lie like that, 2 weeks ago." That you have to have a lot of good recall memory like that to remember what this particular lie does to the golf ball, for example, where you don't have that on the practice tee. So, if it was me, the best year I ever had playing golf was that I can remember was 1996, that year I played against Tiger. I played so much that year. I can't remember even practicing a lot. I just went out in the golf course and played and played and played. And that was me. Some people are very different. Bryson DeChambeau, he says when he's home, he doesn't play golf. He practices golf. And that's it. And so it just depends on your mindset and how you're kind of wired. But as a general rule, you are going to learn a heck of a lot more about yourself and about your game when you can devote more time on the course and less time on the practice tee. Yeah,
I can see that. So not as a golf instructor, but as a golfer, which I'm assuming the way you're talking, you've been playing most of your life. You started out as a kid.
Yep.
What stands out to you as the best advice you've ever received as a golfer?
Best advice. That's I think I had a great instructor. I was very fortunate. I met a gentleman by the name of Ray Daly when I was 10 years old, and he gave me lessons for about 3 years. He was one of the old pros. He wore the Sansa belt slacks, and he had played on the tour back in the 50s. And he taught me. He didn't charge me a penny for the lessons. He taught me, by the way, which was unbelievable.
That would never happen today.
But his name was Ray Daly. He lived in Pompano Beach, Florida, and was just a huge impact for me. And the one lesson that he gave me that I'll never forget as long as I live, and it's the simplest thing for dialing in your golf swing. As you turn and you go back to the top of the swing and then you come down, your right hip, if you're a right-handed golfer, your right hip and your hands have to get to the point of impact at the same time. And if you can do that, you'll time the strike up very well. So he always told me, he said, Steve, hip and hand together. And so that's kind of the thought. If your hands outrace your hips, you're not going to hit it well. If your hips outrace your hands, you're not going to hit it that well. But it's that marriage of the lower body and the upper body in just a simple phrase, hip and hand together. I thought that was the the best lesson I ever got.
Interesting, because that's mechanics. That's swing mechanics, right?
Yeah. But
As opposed to,
it's simple though.
It is. It is. But it's effective, and it's in your head, right?
Yeah.
Like some of the best advice that we've ever had on the show may have come from a listener. Who knows where the beginning is? But we say, never follow a bad shot with a stupid shot. Right.
True.
So now we're going back. We're going back to course management and playing golf versus hitting a ball.
Yep.
So I'm just so fascinated. I love that question. And it always kind of throws people when I ask them that, like, what's the best advice? So let me ask you this. As an instructor, what's the best advice you've ever received?
As an instructor, I also learned, as an instructor, I learned from the great Bob Toski, who founded the Golf Digest schools with Jim Flick. And Bob is he's still alive and kicking, and is almost 100 years old, Bob is. But he taught me, this was probably about 20 years ago, that as a right-handed golfer, your left arm or your lead arm as a golfer is the master arm, and your left hand, your lead hand, is the master hand. You have to really understand that side of your body needs to be controlling the club face more than the right side or your trailing side of your body. And once I learned that, my golf ball behaved a lot better. I understood how to grip the club better, which controlled the club face better, which in turn controlled my golf ball better. So it really all stemmed from, the left arm and the lead arm being the master arm.
Fascinating. Steve Scott, SCOTTPGA.com, right?
Yep.
And then on social media, find you at Steve Scott, PGA?
Yes. Yeah. It's S Scott PGA on Instagram and the X. And, there's a really neat thing though, that, if, as we're going, can I just add this?
Please.
So there's a really, as in the broadcasting world. And so we've got, the Silver Club Golfing Society, and I'm doing a lot of broadcasting with ESPN. One of the other great things that I'm doing is I'm involved with a group called Hole 19. It's a neat new venture, if you will. There's a gentleman by the name of Mac Barnhart and a lady by the name of Rose Lanham have created this kind of a speakers forum, if you will, called Speakers for Good. And this Hole 19 part of it. So Mac and Rose, they're involved with a lot of great people in the game, from Lucas Glover to Joey D, who is the great fitness trainer for a lot of the PGA Tour players in the Jupiter Palm Beach area,
who we just had on recently.
Oh, there we go. See, Joey D's, he's on awesome. Your podcast. He's famous, right? But and so what we're doing, we're creating it, with the likes of myself and others, creating really neat opportunities for companies, corporations within, whether it's PGA Tour events or whatnot, to have a really kind of unique, kind of boutique experience, if you will. Let's say, for example, there was a small group of people involved in a company, and they wanted to have an inside look of, what were the players going through. And so, like, I could walk around with a small group of people during 9 holes of a PGA Tour event and give them the insight to what is going on in the PGA Tour players' heads, for example, and kind of give them the inside track. You have all these pro-ams on a Wednesday at a PGA Tour event, and the players get to interact sometimes with the golf professional out there, depending on how outgoing or they are or not. But they don't always get all the inside information out there to what they're doing when they're doing it. And so, what our Hole 19 group can offer is kind of just a neat kind of inside experience, in a way, kind of an elevated VIP experience, if you will, to, go and, really, get involved with these corporations and these companies who want to be involved with golf. And, we could have a day and they could get trained by Joey D. We could, I could go play golf with them.
Wow.
I could fix their slice, and then we could go out to a tour event. in the area and watch and get the inside scoop of what the players are doing. There's lots of cool opportunities that are being created with Hole 19. So I just wanted to share that with you as well.
Yeah, sure. And how do we find that?
And you'd be able to find that on playersforgood.com. You look through there and reach out to Rose and we can get some good information on the Hole 19 and get involved with that.
Awesome. Steve, it's really been fascinating to talk to you, hear your story. Thank you for sharing some incredible stories and some incredible insights and lessons. Thanks so much.
No, it's really, really great to be with you, Fred. And just sharing all the fun information and the fun, anything golf I can talk all day about.